Guys, the thrilling conclusion to the campfire story, Pipeline Avulsion, is upon us. This is it, the last part. Let's get into it.
He worked for them a long time, basically shipping milk. At one point, his Christmas bonus was he got 5 free gallons of milk.
Oh boy! I cannot drink 5 gallons of milk.
Oh,
before
it's
it goes
fine.
bad.
It's coupons, so you can redeem them whenever.
Oh, see, no, okay, there's nothing to complain about.
Despite the fact that you work at a dairy plant and you can just grab a gallon of milk whenever you need one.
Mm-hmm.
I remember when I worked at Subway. Subway, believe it or not, at least 15 years ago, meticulously counts every single roll of bread in the store, the start and the finish, meaning that there is no way you can just make yourself a sandwich. You have to enter a special code to get your free sandwich for lunch. However, what they don't count is the tortillas, pizzas, and wraps that are just sort of treated willy-nilly. This is great because, of course, instead of making yourself one sub, you could make yourself infinity wraps. There was also, I'm happy to report, an underground system in my city in which different, at least the night shift, different popular consumer stores such as Starbucks or the local ice cream parlor would call each other and say, hey, I'm willing to trade coffee for Subway sandwiches. And we would politely inform them that we were unable to trade proper hoagies due to the draconian accountability system, but we would be more than happy to provide them with all the wraps they could want in exchange for, of course, the bougiest coffee we could get. It was a great system, and it warmed my heart knowing that regular workaday employees were able to pull a fast one on the bosses.
At one point when he was working there and he was talking to the new employee, and the new employee was like, oh yeah, I'm getting paid X amount of dollars.
And that was why more than he was being paid.
Yeah. So he basically was just like, yeah, I'm not doing any more work today until you pay me as much or more than he is getting paid.
Haha, nice!
I'm not doing anything else.
Put your foot down!
I'm literally doing nothing else until you pay me as much or more than he's getting paid. Well, we'll have to talk to management about... Well, fine, then I'm not doing anything until then.
That is so...
Yeah, this is the thing with being indispensable, is that you should learn to negotiate. One of the things that does sort of bother me about the US is that companies, often big companies, can negotiate from a position of strength, especially if you are the only employer of that unique skill set. Think about, for example, the only cable internet company in your local area. If you are a cable installer, you have one possible employer. And so, sort of, it's the opposite version. It's called a monopsony. It's when, unlike a monopoly where there's one person selling a service, there's one person hiring a type of employee. Or in the case of, say, old steel towns, there might literally be a monopsony on all employees or nearly all employees, because other than the guy that owns the grocery store and the guy that owns the bar, everyone else works for the local widget plant. That means that widget plant can decide, or that cable company can decide, that cable installers make a minimum wage now, and those cable installers have virtually no recourse, other than, of course, to go be something else. So there's the delicate balance in which they have to say that basically should pay the cable installers only enough to ensure that they don't quit and take on another profession entirely. Of course, this is thwarted a little bit by the fact that there is often also a cable installers union, and so then there's a much better balance between these companies. But if you're ever questioning if unions are going to bankrupt the country or whatever, just remember, just check that company's profit margins. One of my most heartwarming stories of my corrupting influence on my wife is that she at one point worked at a hospital, and that hospital had a voucher program where people, it was an inner city hospital, so a lot of the people that were patients there would leave and either have not very stable housing or would have no housing at all. And it was very common for people to be living kind of in and out of places. So there was several times patients would ask for cab vouchers. And sometimes that was a little bit of a distance outside the city. So the cab vouchers would be like $50, right? To take a cab to, my cousin's place in XYZ suburb, that's where I'm going to be staying. And it's like, well, you just had a heart attack, so we really, really are glad you're going somewhere with a family member. Well, eventually the hospital system said, you guys are spending a lot of money on these $50 cab vouchers, and you have to stop. You have to start making people take the bus. Well, imagine you're being discharged at 7 a.m. on a Sunday. You're going to take the bus? Also, is there a bus service in your suburban neighborhood, right? Of course not. It's impossible to get there. Cabs are the only thing that are going to take you there, right? A cab or an Uber. And so the fact that this hospital was tightening its belt, and then my wife looked up the stock price, and they had recently released earnings and had a record-breaking earnings season. So the fact that they were breaking earnings records on the same day that they were out there saying that there wasn't money to ensure that poor people don't have to ride the bus for 4 hours after being discharged for a heart attack was actually sort of disgusting. And so it's always important to check to see if your company is actually as broke as they say they are, or if we don't have money is code for we don't want to give you more money.
Commendable to stand your ground.
I wish I could have done that.
We took so much abuse because we were convinced that employers will have your best interests in mind.
Yeah, they care about you.
Yeah.
No, they don't.
Did they actually fire him there?
No, they actually gave him more money.
There you go.
It wasn't much, but it was more.
Uh-huh.
After I quit the pipeline survey job, I took a job working at a factory that produces the dyes they use to stamp out the body parts of cars.
Okay.
So I worked at a company that makes those things. And I was just doing custodial work at that job. The reason I ended up losing that job, not because it was absolutely god-awful.
No, because back then you would still put up with that stuff.
I was still putting up with it. I was like, I need to work, and yeah, it's only $10 an hour, but whatever, fuck it. I need...
I mean, if you want to see the preposterousness of the system, just point out the fact that Zach is a, 5-year Army veteran with a college degree. Or I think he was like 90% of the way to a college degree, and which he probably should have finished at this point. But he's working as a janitor for $10 an hour.
Money. If you missed a day of work during your probationary period, which was 180 days, you were fired. Zero tolerance policy.
And you missed a day?
I told them beforehand, I was like, hey, I need like this time off. Well, I don't know if we can do that. Like,
Yeah.
I have to leave. I have a doctor appointment. Let's not forget, I'm a veteran with PTSD, and I'm on brain pills, so I might just want to fucking murder myself. Maybe I'm having a real fucking bad time, man.
Yeah, I gave you forewarning. I'm not going to be here that day.
I'm not gonna be here that day. I have to be somewhere. Okay, so I talked to like 6 people up the chain of command, but I'm not gonna be here that day. Okay, we'll get it up. We'll get it figured out. I'm not there that day. The next day I show up for work. You weren't here yesterday. Yeah, I said I was gonna be gone. Well, we have to let you go.
That was that.
Cool, great, thanks. Thanks for absolutely fucking nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah, the incredible thing is they must have just assumed they were going to have somebody else they could hire. It's pretty incredible that the level of, like, on one hand, phenomenal abuse that employees at lower level jobs like this take. And on the other hand, the fact that it's also sometimes really hard to find even decently reliable workers. Probably because these policies are so pathetic that no decent worker will set foot there. And the only people that will are just sort of... Just like total unreliable dirtbags.
I've told you about a lot of terrible jobs that I've had. From cheese recycler
Yep.
to injection molder. There was another job where I assembled mirrors. So I was working in a factory and we were assembling rear view mirrors
Ah, yes.
for vehicles. And they told me, yeah, by the way,
Okay, well, let's let him finish the story, then I'm going to go on an angry rant.
before you leave every day, look at this giant screen that has all of the shifts on it. Because if you're scheduled for overtime, we're not going to tell you. It's just going to be on that board.
Oh, for fuck's sake.
I came in one day and they said, hey, you were scheduled for an extra 4 hours yesterday and you didn't show up 4 hours early. And I said, oh, sorry. I'm still, new here. I didn't know. I got fired.
Of course.
Of course.
Of course. Why? Why not? Why wouldn't they?
No.
You didn't show up.
They liked me so much, they promoted me, and then I made a simple mistake and they fired me.
Also, not disclosing your hours. I'm curious because a lot of federal labor violations or federal labor law dictates hours worked and how much notice you can give someone before putting them on hours. The other problem with these sort of flex hour systems is that they actually preclude the employee from earning. And I actually have a problem with this system for a bunch of reasons. But my biggest one is that when you agree to work for a company, right, the definition of work itself, right, is does a security guard do work? Yes. Does he need to move or make something? No. A security guard just needs to be awake and alert in a station. And so you can even sometimes do other things while doing that job. You could be a security guard doing your job 100% effectively and still be, for example, eating a sandwich or watching television, right? The point of this is that when you say, okay, what work is that you are trading your time in which you cannot do another job. That is to me the core thing. If work creates a system in which you cannot take another job, then you should be paid for that time, right? I actually think people should be paid for their commutes within a certain reasonable level, right? I'm not going to pay you to drive in from Des Moines, right? But you can't do another job. And I get it. You could live closer in some cases. But what you can't do, there was a court case recently where Amazon actually had a 30-minute enter and exit security screening for which they didn't pay their employees, but required their employees to be at the job site. And Amazon employees sued, saying, you make us come here at this time. This is our appointed beginning of work. We cannot be anywhere else. And so therefore this constitutes work, even though it's just a security screening procedure. And Amazon lost the case. They had to pay back pay to thousands of employees who sued over this 30 minutes on each end of their day, right? So the point of all of this is that if you have a system where they say at any time, we can schedule you for an extra shift, then you are on call, right? Just like a physician or nurse who's on call, or an emergency dispatcher, right? Being on call is a compensated role. It is labor, and they're paying you that because you could spend those hours working on another business, working at another job, right? But you can't because you are constantly on zero notice. And so if you want to place someone on call for 24 hours a day, then you should compensate them as such.
Yeah.
Probationary periods are so fun.
Yeah, they're amazing and wonderful.
And then there was the time I worked for the furniture assembly factory.
I didn't know about this.
Oh, yes. I was assembling tables.
Oh, I do know about this job because I know what's going to happen.
Yeah, I worked at that job for a month. At the end of every shift, we have to clean the machine.
Yes.
At the end of one day, the machine was still running when I went to clean it out, and it chunked off a part of my finger. That was the day I learned about avulsions, which is different from amputations, because amputation implies precision.
Oh, God.
When your finger gets ripped apart, that's called an avulsion.
Yeah, I remember you sending me pictures of your finger.
Jesus
I
Christ.
still have those pictures saved.
Yeah, they're fucked up.
Yeah. I got a worksite injury. They asked me at the time, do you think you need an ambulance? And I'm sitting there on the ground covered in blood because my finger just got ripped apart. Yes?
I don't know.
You want me to make the decision? I'm basically in shock right now. Yes, get me to the hospital. Ambulance, sure. Looking back on it, it's not life-threatening. You could just take me there in a car.
Yeah.
No, this is an inaccurate conception, right? Do you know why the classic I can't talk about it. If you have a severe wrist injury, For example, let's say you accidentally cut yourself right here. Do you know why it's so dangerous? It's because there's so much blood flow that passes to the hand that it's very easy if you cut it incorrectly, right? That you could actually lose a large portion of your blood just through your hand, loss of blood in your hand. So these sort of injuries to your extremities, right? In movies and stuff, they're survivable. And that's true. And in movies, people get shot in the hand and keep going all the time. But the reality is that if you lose enough blood from almost any wound, you are at risk of death. And if these people didn't, tightly bandage it, or really you should tourniquet it, you run the risk of losing enough blood that your whole life, your whole body can shut down due to low blood pressure.
But you asked me if I need an ambulance. Sure, give me an ambulance. I don't know, fix this. I don't know how bad it's going to be. I don't know if my life is going to be permanently altered from that point on.
Yeah, you basically just had 2 fingers sawn down on your dominant hand.
Yeah, you don't expect to look down and see part of your hand missing. It's shocking. They took me to the hospital. They checked me out, said, there's not much we can do. We'll bandage it. We'll change the bandages every day and hope for the best. They did what they could. There wasn't much they could do. But after that, the company really didn't want to keep me around. So they started framing me for safety violations. They'd walk past a conveyor belt and say, hey, that safety isn't on. And it's like, I'm not the only one who uses this conveyor belt.
Yeah.
Like 4 or 5 other people use this conveyor belt. I engage the safety brake every time, but I can't ensure it stays locked because other people...
That is probably, I imagine, constructive. That's because they are trying to build a pattern. So they are worried about him suing the company, which he could do because there was probably a pretty serious OSHA violation in making people clean a machine that was running. OSHA would probably be pretty pissed about that. And there may actually be a lawsuit because, again, as a manual laborer who loses dexterity in their hand, there is actually a pretty big payout potentially there. So what do they need to do to avoid or to beat that lawsuit preemptively? Well, you would have to show that that employee was actually reckless in their safety protocols, right? So, well, you can't retroactively create safety violations. What you can do is proactively create safety violations. So going forward, they will demonstrate that this was actually a really unsafe employee whose conduct was so bad on the job site that it was only logical that he would get hurt on a perfectly safe job site. Truthfully, he probably never should have gone back and probably should have contacted a lawyer because, again, just to see if there was a case that this was a reckless and dangerous level of conduct. Certainly, he had a permanent injury, and he was being asked to clean a machine that was still running, which is bananas.
People use it. This happened a couple times. They noticed a safety violation. They told me that it was my fault. They made me sign a piece of paper. But that was the 4th safety violation they'd written me up for, so they had total cause to let me go and deny me unemployment because it's all my fault.
Because you had safety violations.
If I had just not signed these pieces of paper, I would have had a better chance of getting...
He would have had a lawsuit. He would have had a case. Damn. I mean, here's the problem, right? In this story, only one of these actors has a lawyer, has good legal advice, right? The company has lawyers. The company knows OSHA. The company knows the legal precedents behind workplace injuries, right? Workman's comp. He should be off doing workman's comp, right? Instead, they know it and they know how to worm their way out of it, but Mike doesn't. And that's the problem with this, right? You keep everyone ignorant and you keep the company so much smarter that you're never going to win.
Getting unemployment.
You probably would have gotten fired, but you would have been able to collect unemployment because they fired you without cause.
They mangled your fingers.
The society we live in is so screwed up that even though I've had about 40 jobs at this point, I think I've collected unemployment maybe once in my entire life.
Yeah.
I know they make you fill out paperwork and show proof that you've actually been applying to jobs. It is such a hassle.
It is the biggest hassle because when I was on unemployment, I had to prove that I had applied for 8 jobs a week. And then I had to go to things where it's like, here's how you use the internet to apply for a job. And it's like a 6-hour course on how to use the internet to apply for a job. I know.
This is because in the US, the unemployment fund actually comes from the employer's pocket. So the employer pays into an unemployment compensation fund, and if their employees are fired, that employer is expected to pay for that, right? That means that employers have a couple of incentives. First, they have an incentive to always make it the employee's fault that they were fired. Two, they have an incentive to lobby the state and local governments to make it as onerous and difficult as possible to file for unemployment, right? Logically, it should be sort of automatic, right? You'd think that when you lose your job, just the same way they send you a final paycheck, they should put you on unemployment. But because the companies lobby state and local governments and even the federal government to an extent to ensure that these unemployment compensation systems are really, really burdensome for the employee or former employee, it ensures that fewer employees actually, one, know that they can even claim it, because a lot of people just don't know that they're eligible or refuse to do it, right? I actually did briefly go on unemployment when I left the Army because the Army funds that system too. I had a gap between when I started grad school and when I left the military that was long enough that I could file for unemployment, but short enough that no job of any substance was going to be available to me. And so I had to do it. But even then, it was so onerous that I had a secondary hearing to verify a technicality, right? I had written a piece for a small amount of stipend, and I would have to prove that the one time I got $400 for writing an op-ed wasn't actually another job. But luckily for me, normally at these hearings, the employer sends their lawyer to contest your unemployment case. But because it's funded by the DOD, of course, the DOD it would be a waste of their time to hire and send a DOD lawyer to contest unemployment. Plus, it's just a bad look for soldiers that leave the military to have the military arguing that they don't deserve a little bit of a bridge.
I know how to fucking do this. I know how to look for jobs. There's none available right now. Nobody is fucking hiring. Unless I want to get a job working at Walmart, getting paid $3 an hour.
Yeah, some bullshit like that.
Some fucking shit thing. And then it's like, anyway, I'm getting off topic.
There was one job I worked for, the plastic injection molding facility. I didn't like.
I mean, this is just a testament to how rough it can be out there. If you are, there's two ways to think about being an employee. There's human capital, right? And that's what some human resources departments call it. And then there's being labor, right? Or sometimes human resources. And I really think this distinction, a lot of people use them interchangeably, and that's fine. But the distinction I think is really important. Human capital is a term for a human being who possesses skills that are so valuable to the employer that they are treated as a capital asset. A capital asset capital is in modern economic terms a piece of equipment, basically, and that is essential to producing the good or service that you sell on the marketplace. So in the case of, for example, this table making facility company, right? The capital would be the machine making the table legs that cut off Mike's fingers, right? So you've got that. And so how does a company maintain that machine? How does it maintain its capital? Well, they clean it every single day. They probably run it in accordance with the manufacturer's directions. They replace all the parts before they are worn out or expired. They preventatively perform maintenance on it. They probably have technicians come and inspect it regularly. They treat it as a productive asset. And so they treat it well because they want that productive asset to remain productive for a long, long time, right? In contrast to low skill labor, right? And labor or human resources, your human resources are oftentimes, when you talk about non-capital human resources, are people who can be trained to do the job in days or weeks, right? Anyone with basic levels of literacy or basic level of numeracy can be brought up to speed on how to do role X or Y or Z. This would be something like loading boxes into a truck, or maybe, turning on and off a machine in a factory, right? Following simple written directions, labeling things, packing things. These are roles that you could be trained to do, a human being could be trained to do in a few days or a few weeks, right? But the problem is that when you have labor, you can kind of just treat it however you want because it's easily replaced. And so this is how, for example, Amazon treats its warehouse employees, right? The idea is not that the warehouse employees will work for Amazon long term. The idea is that Amazon will not have these employees working for them for very long. They expect these employees to last maybe 6 months, these warehouse workers, before their bodies or their psyches start to fall apart under the stress of the job, right? It's not meant to be sustainable, right? Their packing robots get treated better than their employees because frankly, their packing robots are viewed as a productive asset. And so the best way to navigate this sort of economy, right, is to do everything you can to transition over to being human capital, right? You want to be so valuable that your employer cannot treat you like dirt, right? And a good example again is like a physician. A physician's time is almost always compensated. There are increasingly they are being treated like robots, but they still are treated as white collar professionals who are they're often able to work into flexible arrangements. Their employers often offer robust benefits. These are, they tend to be very deferential in terms of scheduling and preferences of the physician. This is all because they are high knowledge workers, software developers. But really nowadays it's about being a specialist. By the end of my time at the government, right, I had become a extremely high level expert in immigration and national security issues surrounding it. So it meant that basically I was given a tremendous, almost eye-watering amount of leeway in exchange for the fact that I was expected to deliver certain expertise when it was necessary. And it's when you achieve that level of human capital, it can be a really good job, and work can be very rewarding. But the problem is, of course, that for the vast majority of people, they either don't have the baseline skill sets or they're not developing anything that's going to get them closer to human capital. The irony, of course, being that as an entertainer, as a content creator, Zach and Mike actually have found a tremendous amount of human capital. No one, right? I could not, if I owned, they could give me the login to their channel. I wouldn't be able to recreate what they have. They have tremendous human capital because they're unique. YouTube cannot replace them. And that's why they make a lot of money. I imagine they're making much more than they ever made doing this. Similarly, Zach, as a true firearms expert, probably does really fairly well at the gun store where he works, right? Because he gets to leverage the area where he has actual human capital. The irony, of course, being that, as we talk about, it takes money to make money. And if you can afford more guns and more range time, you will become a smarter firearms expert, right? Meaning that your human capital and your ability to command higher wages or better working conditions increases even more. So it becomes this virtuous cycle, similar to the way that if you come out of like Stanford, you go work for management consulting or investment banking for 2 years. And so when you apply for your MBA, you have money and you have relevant experience. So when you come out with your MBA, you're even more sought after and more valuable, right? This is sort of how the system kind of screws you. In contrast, when you have 40 jobs and you have no demonstrable skills from any of those 40 jobs, it doesn't improve your working conditions. You're just seen as an older, less physically able worker.
Like that job, it was a paycheck, it was flexible, I stayed with it. It was third shift, which sucked, but the supervisor was a fellow Marine, a great guy. I did Toys for Tots charity work with him. I liked him. He asked me to stay with the company a little longer. I said, okay, I'll do it for you. I do plan on leaving soon, but at your request, I will stay here for a few more months. And then he got let go because he wasn't meeting the quota or something that the company wanted.
Christ.
And when they did that, I put in my 2-week notice because I was only there at his request. But there were a couple other people that just quit outright, and I kind of wish I was with them.
Yeah.
Like, they blamed him for not being able to retain somebody on third shift at this stupid factory that doesn't pay well.
You legitimately didn't get paid enough to fix your car. And you would ride your bike to work, and there were times where your bike broke.
I forgot about that.
And you had to call me on a payphone to come pick you up.
I remember.
This is actually really depressing. This is incredibly depressing.
Yeah, this job that I worked at was a 10-minute drive away from where I lived. It was so convenient. 10 minutes of driving away. But at one point, my vehicle broke down. I didn't have the money to fix it. So I would bike to work and bike back. My 10-minute drive became a 60-minute bike ride.
Yeah.
But there were a couple times where my bike broke or had a flat or something. So I would walk. There was one time I was walking back and I had my thumb out. I was hitchhiking on my way back home.
Oh my God.
One time I actually had somebody stop by and let me ride with him. I asked him what his name was. I think his name was Wrench, I think he called himself. He was just covered in piercings and tattoos. Like,
damn.
Yeah, man, I used to hitchhike before. I know how it is. It's all good.
Damn, man.
Yeah.
When I was living in Virginia...
That just sucks. This just depresses me, right? That you can be a hardworking former Marine and you can just be working these like terrible jobs, right? For no particular reason other than just that's what's out there. This actually sort of like breaks my heart because these are obviously good guys. These are obviously incredibly hardworking guys. And I'm glad that they were able to find success as content creators, but it also sucks because so many other people, right? For every one story like these guys, there's probably 100 of people that just can't really get it together and make it in this economy. It's really hard to do.
Virginia, I picked up...
And you need so many skills.
Hitchhikers once. I was driving somewhere and there were 2 very attractive women sitting on the side of the road.
All right.
And
right there, that is the most dangerous thing because no woman without a plan is going to put herself in that level of danger.
They had a sign like going to Richmond or whatever.
This seems like a scam.
Yep.
They were from Germany and they're like, yeah, we need a ride to get to here or wherever. I was, yeah, okay, yeah, I can give you a ride. So they come towards the car and then 4 dudes come with them.
Oh, no.
The guys were sitting just out of sight by a park bench, and they were using the women as bait to lure unsuspecting men into giving them a ride.
Yo, if I saw 4 dudes, one, I am not stopping for hitchhikers, period. Ever. No, full stop. Right? But definitely, if I am so stupid, I'm picking up 2 attractive female hitchhikers, which maybe is like they're German. They really don't understand the danger they're in. I'm going to give them a ride and I'm going to tell them, do not do this. But then I see 4 other guys jump out. I am saying peeling out of there as fast as possible.
Somewhere. So I had 6 Germans crammed into my car.
I thought that story was going to take a different
I did
turn,
too.
like you were going to get mugged there. They actually wanted a ride.
No, they actually wanted a ride, but they were like, yeah, people won't stop if it's 4 guys.
That's fair. Yeah. That's a good story.
Because when I pulled over, they were like, yeah, we need, do you have room for 6 people in your car? And I was like, yeah, I do. And,
oh, you got 4 lady friends hiding in those bushes over there?
Oh boy, this will be fun.
One of the guys puts on some leggings and a high heel, sticks his leg out from the bush.
Just love these like randomly thrown in animations.
Yeah, I got some friends over there, all right.
Oh man, yeah, they fucking conned me. It was fine though.
Yeah.
We had a good laugh about it.
It's a con that everyone can enjoy.
I tried my really bad German at them, and they thought it was very funny.
Das ist ein Moron.
Mein Deutsch ist mittelmäßig.
Ah, yes.
And they thought that was really funny because they're like, how can you say you're German? You know the word for mediocre.
Yeah.
How can you say your German is mediocre? Can't say anything else. Oh, I can say,
It's like that Family Guy bit with the person who's just like, you know, I've memorized this speech in perfect English, but it is all the English that I know. it does sort of remind me when I was learning Portuguese. I learned like my basic Portuguese when I was in Brazil, the first 7 months or so. But then I really didn't get proficient until I started taking Portuguese classes as part of a language requirement in my master's. But the problem is that my master's had an international like relations and national security focus. So it meant that I would learn like the Portuguese word for like UN or for hyperinflation or central bank, right? Or international trade agreement, but I wouldn't know the Portuguese word for things like pineapple. It's abacaxi, but that's an example, right? I wouldn't know like pineapple or like what's the word for spoon, So we'd be able to be like, I'd be able to tell you that like, Brazil isn't a signatory to certain types of nuclear treaties because of their treaties with Argentina, but I wouldn't be able to tell you that you eat ice cream with a spoon.
Ich habe Käse in meinen Hosen. I have cheese in my pants.
And then they taught you how to say, "Don't shoot, I surrender."
Guys, that was pretty good. Oh, is this like an end screen? Oh, check this out. Oh man, wait, let's just see. Oh, I like it. Yeah, he's really coming a long way, guys. All right. Thanks so much for joining me. First off, this was fun. I'm obviously going to check out another campfire story. There's plenty out there. If you have one you want me to check out, man, you just let me know in the comments. Also, if you want access to some exclusive content and to join an exclusive room on the Discord and just generally support your maybe favorite content creator, you want to go to Patreon, patreon.com/combatvetpaul. Also, follow me on Twitch. I'm streaming 4 days a week, 3 days a week, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and most Saturdays. Of course, thanks to our Lieutenant tier Patreons, Cole Foster, Caffeinated, Chris Command Unit, and Jakob Flavius. All right, guys, thanks so much for joining me, and I'll see you guys later.